This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gould.
Welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. It is I, Old Gingerface, here with you as always. Thank you for being here, ladies and gentlemen. Always an honor that you're here, and that and also an honor that you found the show through Sergeant Steve channel. Thank you so much. It's so weird to think about. I started this podcast, 7 years ago, and it's been a wild ride. It's given me a bunch of great opportunities, and I'm very thankful for that. And I'm thankful for all the guests that come on and tell their wild and amazing stories. But the Sergeant Steve thing started like 6 months ago and has like, I think in a month or so we'll be at 250,000 subscribers, and it's been a totally incredible and crazy. I can't believe it. And it's bringing people to the podcast so they can hear the true stories, wild stories, unedited, how they live them, of the men and women of law enforcement, so we can all have a better appreciation for what it is they do for us when we're sleeping soundly in our beds. Today's guest is no different. He is a lawman starting in Benton County, Oregon. He worked for the sheriff's office for 13 years. He did patrol. He did 5 years on the street crimes unit, and then back to patrol before he came over to the great state of Montana and is working as a state investigator. That role we'll leave it at that because he's active right now. Without further ado, let me bring on the great Adam Miller. Adam.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
My pleasure, brother. So glad you're here. And have to give a shout out to Cameron, past guest. Thank you for the referral. That's what the show's all about. That keeps the boat afloat, getting people guests know to come on. So, and I appreciate your willingness to come on, sir.
Thank you.
Absolutely my pleasure. Adam, Oregon to Montana seems like that would be, they seem like pretty different states. What made you make the jump? How come you moved?
I think you kind of already would guess or could guess.
The craziness.
The politics.
Yeah.
I left Oregon in 2022, and post-COVID plus 2 years, it was still very wild there in terms of law enforcement. They got really relaxed in terms of drug law, and so I just decided it was enough.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, it's funny because what I hear, and I'm on the East Coast, I'm in the Northeast, so I don't really know, but from what I hear, if you're going to work in that part of the country, a sheriff's office is the place to be. If you have a sheriff who kind of aligns with your own ideologies, that would be correct, right? If you have a sheriff that, because they're like the king of the agency, they have a lot of power.
Yeah, they're elected officials, so every 4 years you're working for someone different, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. And then also in Oregon, as everywhere, each county is very politically different depending on which part of the state it's located in.
Yeah. I have buddies that live in the Pacific Northwest, and they say that it's. I have a buddy who lives in Washington, my good buddy Ken, and it varies wildly, from super not pro law enforcement, let's say, to like a sheriff who's like into enforcing the laws, conservative, and all the citizens back him. It's very different depending on where you go. So I don't think you can go wrong with Montana, though, from what I hear.
No, it's better in a lot of ways. Wages are a little lower for the most part, but the political climate's much better, and people here love their law enforcement. There were, however, a lot of folks in Oregon that loved cops, especially in Eastern and Central Oregon. But it was a lot fewer and far between.
Yeah, I always feel bad when people reach out to me a lot through email and they want advice on, like, especially if they're young and they can kind of go wherever they want. When you're young, just starting out, maybe you don't have like a serious girlfriend or wife, and I want to be a cop and I'm willing to like go anywhere. It's like
you're just trying to get your foot in the door.
Yeah, just whoever will take you basically is the name of the game, or used to be. And I always tell them, like, just go somewhere they're gonna appreciate you. Like go somewhere they're gonna back you, and you can be a good environment for you to learn in, and you won't be afraid to make a mistake, like an honest mistake. And I always feel a little bit bad because the people in these, like, I work in a super liberal state. There is, like you said, there might be less supporters, but there are supporters here, and they deserve law enforcement as well that are going to do the job. But I still tell them that because it's like I don't want to encourage somebody to get into into a city that just like it is trying to defund the cops and tell them, yeah, that's a great idea to go work there and cut your teeth in that agency because it's going to be bad.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Cameron and I talked about this before, but back when I started in 2009, there were on average 165 applicants per position for each job posting, and now you're lucky if you get 7 or 8 qualified per position. So back then it was super hard to get hired, and now it's a lot easier, and you can be a lot more selective on where you go.
Yeah, I got into it around the same time, and it was like they would give a test at like the cafeteria at like an elementary school or wherever they could do it, and there would be like 120 people, and it was like a hard test, and there was like 6 positions. It was crazy, and now it's like the same thing. We are either you will get somebody who like you just don't know because they have no prior law enforcement at all, and they're just super green, or you will get people that other agencies wouldn't hire. Or
you get your washouts, or you guys that hop from agency to agency that you just don't want, or your folks with zero experience.
Right. Like they didn't get decertified by post, but they did get let go from their agent. So they still have a license to work, but like
they resigned in lieu of termination. So just go away. Yeah.
It's rough, man, especially when you're trying to keep your staffing full and serve the community and let them know there's people out there for you. It becomes hell, but luckily I'm not the chief of police, so it's not really anything I have to answer to.
Yeah. I don't know about when you started either, but like it wasn't uncommon to wash like 1/3 to 2/3 of everyone on FTEP as well. So even if you made it and got hired, you weren't guaranteed.
Yeah. Yeah, that there are some bigger agencies around me that still do that, and I think it's great. My hat's off to them that they're still that they have that rigorous a field training program. But it is painful to see them spend all that money on 10 people and then like only 6 make it. It's like, oh my gosh, 4 people you paid for all their equipment, all their academy, you paid their salary and their health care. And then 2 weeks later, see you later. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it's something like what 150,000 for one person for their first year of training and trying to onboard them. And so I always thought, like, why not try to vet people a little more carefully and invest a little more time in them rather than just wash them out? Not saying that people who don't perform shouldn't be washed, but you need to put some time into folks.
No, I agree. Like when I was, I don't know if it's the same for you, but when I was interviewing for these jobs in the early 2000s, it was like some agencies would do like a panel, and then they would do like a high stress interview where like they would have like a supervisor detective in there, and he would like bluff you with stuff and be like, isn't it true that this happened that when you were at college and you failed to report it? Like they would like, or like if you had anything that was anything to do with a bad breakup, they would fabricate stuff and start to pressure you about you hitting your girlfriend. You know what I mean? Like to try to see what you'll do, try to get under your skin, see if you can take it. And I remember an agency on the Cape that was doing that to a guy, and he passed out during the interview. Like his head hit the table, and it was like, well, this is good information now. You know what I mean? Like you put the guy in an extremely stressful situation, and he passed out. So,
yeah, you just saved $150,000. So
right. But they really don't in mass. I don't hear of that happening much anymore.
They did that when I got hired. The second round of interviews, everyone was wearing Class A's, and it was very very formal, And so it was very high stress the second time. So yeah. I got hired when I was 22, and so I always consider myself fairly mature, but fresh out of college, you're just like, what did I get myself into?
I can remember sitting in the lobby of a police department, and I had read about box breathing that Navy SEALs do, and I was box breathing in the lobby, don't look or sound like a little bitch when you go in there. Just So scared. Yeah, it's interesting, man. Who knows? They say the pendulum swings, so hopefully we're swinging back to pro cop time. I really don't want us to have like a 9/11 event for people to like police again, but that seems to be the last time that it was like a rah police type of situation.
Yeah, 2009 when I got hired, everyone was still kind of riding that pro police, movement from 9/11. So yeah, we haven't really had a really unifying event for many years. So which is good. I mean, tragedies are,
Right.
you want to avoid that. But yeah,
Absolutely.
I think we've lost focus as to why law enforcement's needed and why law and order's needed. 2020 kind of brought some of that back though. I saw a lot of that on the West Coast. You had people that were like, "This is crazy. We need law enforcement." And so there were a lot of people speaking out in favor of law enforcement when their businesses are being burned and houses are being looted.
Yeah, right or wrong, probably wrong. But when I see these agencies on the West Coast that were way in the middle of the country that were way into defunding, and now they're offering $50,000 bonuses to hire people and they can't get people, it kind of feels good. It's like, yeah, look what you did. Look what you did to your
Yeah,
citizens.
it's a bit of an "I told you so" moment, but then going back to what we were talking about, you remember the folks that never wanted that, right? And
Yeah,
they're still there. So
you're right. It's bad. It's
yeah.
I'm a naughty sinner, Adam. Adam, can you take us way back to when you first started? The first hot call you went to, the first call that like you had that little adrenaline dump and your legs were jumpy and you were like, "Oh my goodness."
Well, being a new deputy, I was on swing shift and graveyard for the first couple years of my career because that's the least preferred shift.
That's what
Uh,
you get.
there were a lot. That's what you get. Yeah, you're working weekends. You have zero social life. It's a common experience. So we went to a lot of domestics. There was domestic after domestic. It seemed like almost every night from sundown till 2 a.m. You're going to domestics. Uh, I'd say the first memorable hot call though was when I switched to day shift actually, and a lot of guys don't enjoy working day shift. But this call was not something I was dispatched to originally. It was a gentleman from Eugene, Oregon, which was about 45 minutes south of where I used to work. There was a guy who got called in by his girlfriend or wife, I think it was his girlfriend, as suicidal. He had a shotgun and he was threatening her with the shotgun and threatening suicide against himself. And
Ooh.
so there's a highway that runs from Eugene to Corvallis, kind of parallels Interstate 5. I don't know if you know I-5. It goes up and down the entire West Coast,
Yep.
but there's a highway called Highway 99 West and a highway called Highway 99 East, and they both parallel I-5 on each side of the Willamette River. So people can take that as kind of a bypass or a shortcut between the two cities. And so we get a lot of folks traveling up 99 West, and it's a two-lane highway. There's no shoulders, there's no real passing zones. It's very narrow. We get a lot of bad crashes on it. But this guy, they started pinging his phone when he left Eugene, and he started pinging northbound. And this is, probably back in, I'd say 2010-ish, 2011-ish. So phone pings were a thing, but they weren't super accurate. They're still not super accurate, but
They're
they were
so
even less
easy to
so
do
back
now though.
then.
You can just call dispatch and be like,
Yeah,
"Do it."
yeah, super fast, super fast. Yeah.
Yep.
So they pinged his phone. He went northbound to Corvallis, and so he was in the city. So Corvallis back then was a city of about, I'd say, 60 to 80,000 people plus the university. So no more than 100,000 back then. Uh, but trying to find one car, amongst 100,000 people, it's just not going to happen.
Right.
Uh, so I speculated, or I kind of guessed that he was going to eventually head back down to Eugene at some point, especially because his girlfriend, the potential victim, was down there, and so I kind of positioned myself on the south side of the city, on Highway 99 West, and so lo and behold, my hunch was correct, and he started pinging south, and he'd gotten ahead of me by about a half mile or so. So I hammered down, caught up with him, and located the car. And I go to light it up to make the stop, and I wait until we had a wide spot in the highway, and I also waited until I had a sergeant at the time who was behind me. He was my backup. So he's like, just wait to make the stop until I'm with you, and so I did. And then there was a wide spot in the highway, so I was like, oh, this would be perfect, right? So there's a gravel turnoff, and he's going to just turn off into the gravel, and we can contact him there, right? We were going to do a high risk stop. It was already predetermined or pre-agreed upon. And so I go ahead and activate my lights. He doesn't pull over. So he keeps driving. And I'm like, well, this is interesting.
Yeah.
So I turn my lights off. We go around a little bit of a corner. And by this point, we're almost to the Lane County line. So the next county to the south of us. So in Oregon, you can stop cars into another county, anywhere in the state. It doesn't matter, right? Your jurisdiction extends anywhere within the state of Oregon. So I go to light them up again when we get a straight section, and there's another gravel turnoff on the side of the highway. It's another good spot, right? So this time he finally pulls over, and I was like, great. So we position our vehicles in the high risk traffic stop formation. I start giving him commands. I see him looking at me through the driver's side mirror. I see his eyes and his face from about here to here. And I give him commands to take the keys out of the vehicle, put them out the window, drop them on the ground, open the door from the outside, all the typical high risk stop commands, correct? So my sergeant who's with me, he's got a long gun. I think it was a shotgun of some kind. And so I'm giving this guy commands, and he's not following them. He's not responding, right? So he's not saying anything. He's not taking the keys out. He's not complying at all, right? He just keeps looking at me in the mirror, and I'm yelling, I'm screaming, I'm using the PA, and he's just not responding. So after a few minutes, I'm like, well, I'm just going to keep giving this guy commands and keep telling him, hey man, I know what you're going through. You don't have to do this, and just kind of, trying to build rapport the best I can, screaming on the side of a highway,
Right.
a busy highway. And so eventually I see him go like this, and he grabs something in his hands just like this, and then dips his head like that. So being a gun guy myself, I'm fairly sure that's the barrel of a shotgun, and he's about to shoot himself right in front of us. And I was like, oh man. And then at the same time that's happening, there was oncoming traffic that's passing on the highway, right? And some guy yells out the window, he's got a gun. I'm like,
oh my
thanks,
God.
Thanks, Captain Obvious.
Thanks, Helpy Elberton.
Yeah. So I keep yelling at the guy, keep trying to keep him engaged, keep inside that OODA loop. You don't want to do this, put the gun down, that kind of thing, for several minutes. And eventually he does. He takes the barrel away from his face, and I see it go away. I don't know where it went, but it went away. And he was doing something inside the interior of the vehicle. It was a mid-size SUV, I think like a Trailblazer or something like that. And so at one point, I remember my sergeant also saying, if he shoots at us, I'm going to shoot the back window out, and I want you to take the shot. And I was like, okay. I was like, let me just try to talk him down though. Okay. And he's like, all right. So he puts the shotgun down. He eventually puts his arms out the window, like I tell him to, puts the keys on the ground, opens the door from the outside, gets out on the ground, and prones himself out. And I'm like, great, fantastic, And so we move up on him using the cars as cover, and then take him into custody. We clear the vehicle. There's no one else inside. So we get him in cuffs, get him patted down, and put him in the back of a car. Inside the SUV was the shotgun laying on the center console, right across the center console. It was loaded. There was one in the chamber. He had an open box of shells sitting on the passenger seat. One of the shells on the floorboard, I remember, was spent, so he'd fired it off before I got behind him. And then, because he told me this when I questioned him, he's like, yeah, I pulled over, I fired off a round to kind of get myself a little psyched up, get myself used to the sound of it. And then there was another shell, and it was cut open with a pocket knife partially, so you could see the pellets and the wadding. And I'm like, why'd you cut one open? And he's like, well, I wanted to see if the pellets were big enough to do the job, like the kind of shot that he bought. So I was like, oh, this guy was really going to do this.
Yeah.
So we took him to the hospital. He got POC'd, which in Oregon, I'm sure you have something similar. It's called the police officer custody. So he hopefully got the help he needed. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was like on my birthday. I was working my birthday because I was pretty new and I couldn't get it off. But I was like, I remember thanking the guy, like, please, thank you for not making me,
Oh,
go through that on my birthday. And he's like, yeah, I was gonna make you shoot me. And I was like, yeah, please, or thank you for not doing that. I really do appreciate it. So.
oh, thank goodness, man. Yeah, I think a shotgun at that distance is doesn't matter if it's birdshot or double aught buck.
No.
You're getting the job done.
Yeah. So
Man.
that was probably the first one that kind of stuck in my brain for sure.
That's intense, dude. That's great. Were you able to like keep track of that guy at all and see like, was he a local guy you'd see around at all?
He lives in Eugene. I don't know if he, ended up going on to be successful. I kind of just let it be, but I'm like, every once in a while I'll think back and I'm like, man, I hope he got the help he needed.
Yeah.
And, hopefully him and either his girlfriend worked it out or went their separate ways. He didn't hurt her. So, but yeah, I didn't hear anything else about him after that.
Well, it's not, I mean, it sounds like it's one of those situations where he just needed to hear somebody interact with him and tell him, don't do it. That was enough to make him not do it. Cause you know how it is with suicides, the people that are going to do it, just do it. Like you just find
they don't tell anyone. They just do it. So,
right.
Yeah.
That is intense, man. Your heart must have been in your throat when you're yelling at that guy.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. My sergeant and I afterwards, his eyes were as big as, dinner plates, and I'm sure mine were too. And we were just like, that could have gone so bad. And I was like, yeah, we probably would have shot the guy if he would have came out of the vehicle with the shotgun, and that would have been it. So we would have had no other choice.
Yeah. They, how long is the hold, the involuntary, committal for you guys?
It wasn't very long. It was a fairly short period. I want to say it was like 72 hours in Oregon.
That's what Mass is. That's the minimum.
Yeah, there were several occurrences where we would POC someone, and they would get out, after the doctor gave them their, blessing or whatever, and they would get out and go end up taking their own life, and we'd be like, well, we tried. It's ultimately the doctor's decision or doctor's call, but I remember getting angry calls from sergeants and stuff saying like, why'd you POC this guy? And I was like, I think he was suicidal, a different person, obviously.
Yeah.
But I thought he was suicidal, and I'm going to err on the safe side if I think he is. And, 9 times out of 10, if that person got released early, they end up going and trying to hurt themselves. So I didn't want that on me.
It's funny. Doesn't it kind of feel like we're the only ones that are paranoid about like liability? Like doctors, judges, DAs are kind of like, whatever. And we're like, no, I don't want this coming back on me.
Yeah. DAs have prosecutorial immunity. So it's like, well, there's, you have qualified immunity in some states as a law enforcement officer, but that's not really, it doesn't really protect you. So
and judges have just immunity from any judgment they make.
Almost everything. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank goodness you didn't ruin your birthday for all time, dude. Every birthday you would be like, oh yeah, I remember having to shoot that guy on my birthday.
Yeah. I was always kind of I guess the term is a shit magnet, but in the academy, when I was going through the academy and stuff, I ended up having like 16 shootings in the academy. And so part of me kind of deep down knew I was going to probably find stuff,
in academy, you had 16 shootings. What does that mean?
Yeah. So like the academy in Oregon was 16 weeks when I went through it. I don't know if it's still the same length now, but you have like con sims. I don't know what you guys call them, but confrontational scenarios and stuff. So during the entire length of time. And so, it just seemed like myself and this other guy from my agency, we were always getting in, simulated shootings. And so
that was the outcome for your scenarios, shooting someone.
Yeah. We would try to talk the people down, and sometimes we did, but like, one scenario, this fake traffic stop, the guy rolls out with a shotgun out of the back seat. The other guy has a handgun. I'm like, these guys are loaded for bear. I was like, instructor's like, you were supposed to talk them down. I was like, these guys have 8 firearms between the two of them. It's like, they clearly didn't want to talk. So,
right. Yeah. Yeah. I think we call that, I think they call it in the academy now, they call it applied patrol procedures here, like scenarios and stuff. They have like extra instructors come in from other agencies to like help run the scenarios and stuff. That's what they do here.
Yep. That's how ours was too. Yeah.
Similar. It is so weird. I've talked about it to death on this podcast, but it is so weird that there's no like real like national standard for policing. It's like you can have a guy that's like, oh yeah, I went through the Academy of Mississippi. It was 7 weeks, and then you can have someone from the Northeast or the West that's like, yeah, I went for 26 weeks and it was paramilitary. Yeah. It's like so different everywhere.
Yeah, Oregon State Police in Oregon, and then the Portland Police Bureau. So Portland, obviously, the city of Portland, it's a massive agency. I think at full staffing, they're supposed to have 1,500 officers. They have a pre and a post academy. Oregon State Police has a pre and a post academy. So you have certain guys that are in training for the better part of a year plus, for certain agencies.
Yeah, and then in Europe, it's like college. You go to school for 4 years to get the privilege to be a cop. It's like, wow, so different. Adam, can you tell us about the strangest or most bizarre thing you dealt with?
Well, some strange things. I did have a hitchhiker one time that I contacted when I was back on patrol who claimed to be the love child of John F. Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe.
Good-looking kid or what?
Yeah. So the weird part was he did actually resemble JFK. So
wow.
My theory was that like someone somewhere probably told him, "Hey, you look like a Kennedy or you look like JFK," and it just kind of stuck in his head. He was obviously mentally ill, but yeah, it was kind of funny because he did look like a Kennedy. I was like, well, I could kind of see it. So, but the first, I guess I had my first big property crime. Kind of involved a untraditional stolen item. So I'll just tell you what the item was. It was a statue of a nude female. So it was the bust of a female from the waist up, so fully nude, very valuable. But it was weird. It was a burglary, and so I'd been a cop for maybe a year and a half, and I get this burglary, daytime burglary. And it was a very affluent area of our county. And this guy, he was a local tech business owner. I can't remember exactly what the company did, but it was in the computer industry. And so he had like a, $1.8 million home, right? So nice. I go there. His adult daughter was home, but I think she'd stepped out and left the door unlocked or something. So broad daylight, middle of the afternoon, no alarm active or anything like that. Because why would you, right?
Right.
So I take the burglary report and it's like, yeah, they took the TV, they took Nintendo or something like that, just common burglary items. I was just going to write it up. And, and then he's like, yeah, they took this statue. And I was like, this piece of artwork. And I was like, okay, can you describe it for me? And he's like, yeah, it's the bust of a nude female. And I was
my prized naked lady.
Yeah. So I was like, kind of odd, but rich guys like that kind of stuff. Right.
Sure.
So this is, pre-Epstein Island. Yeah, pre-Epstein Island days.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, how much is this worth? Because I was getting values, for insurance and the police report. And he's like, oh, it's worth 20. And I was like, oh, like $20, it's like on your end table. He's like, no, 20,000. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I was like, I had two theories. Either, someone took this that was a art thief and knew what they were stealing, right? Or it was a crew of tweakers. And they just decided it was cool because it was a naked lady, and it was going to make its way to their coffee table when they're ripping lines of meth, right?
Right.
So it turned out to be
the
latter. So it turned out to be the latter. It turned out to be tweakers. But so I ended up putting an article in the newspaper because I talked to all the neighbors. No one had any leads or anything like that. They left nothing behind. And I put an article in the newspaper because I was drawing a blank. And this lady calls in and she's like, yeah, I saw this like maroon colored Toyota pickup right around the same time this happened. Describes the pickup very well. The make and model, has a camper shell. The guy that was in the driver's seat described him as a bald male, angry scowl, like very detailed. She was a nurse, very, very good memory. And so I was able to cross-reference all the vehicles matching that description that had committed crimes in the city and the county around that time. And there was a shoplift involving this specific vehicle and these specific people. So I go to the house. I was super new. So I go to the house by myself at the time to do a knock and talk. Stupid idea, right? Didn't take a second person. And this lady, one of the female suspects, invites me in because she was high. And so I'm in the living room and I look over and I see I see the stolen TV plugged in and turned on, and I was like, oh shit, I have to get out of here, and I have to call for backup
Yeah.
because these people did it. They did, they did the crime.
Yeah.
So I tactfully exit, make an excuse like, oh, I'll call you later, see you later. I tactically exit, and I call for our one of our detectives to come over there, and we lock it down, write a search warrant. So the statue wasn't there, but we recover all the other items, and so a couple days go by, and I end up taking like 4 people to jail and charging 4 people associated with this burglary. So I felt pretty good about solving it, but I was like, I didn't get the statue back. The rumor is that they'd thrown it in the river, the Willamette River, and it was gone. But I was like, I don't think that. I don't.
Yeah.
Buy
Why would you go to the trouble and throw it in the river? Well,
No,
they are
no.
methods, I guess.
I mean, yeah, but like, oh, they saw the news article, they saw how much money it was worth, and they got rid of it, right? They wanted nothing to do with it.
Right.
So a couple days go by, and this like Corvallis police lieutenant flags me down, and he's like, "Hey, are you Adam Miller?" Because he's like, you're some new guy, I don't know who you are. And so I'm like, yeah, that's me. And he's like, oh, there's a person outside, they want to turn something in, like no questions asked. So I go outside, down on the street below our office, and they pop the back hatch of their SUV, and there's a statue back there under a blanket. And I was like, no way. And so this lady had been given it by one of the suspects and was like, hey, get rid of this, like, stash it somewhere, get rid of it. And she's like, I don't want to go down for this. And so she turned it in. So,
no way. That's rare.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like, how often can you say you solved the burglary of a nude female, right? It's a nude female statue. So
yeah, that's great. Did you lock her up for receiving stolen property?
They all caught charges except for the gal who turned the statue in.
Yeah,
so
yeah. That's the right thing to do.
Yeah, but aggravated theft charge for stealing a statue with boobs. So
yeah, depending on what they did to the statue as well.
Yeah, I did not clean it for the guy, so he just got it back. But
yeah, that is bizarre, dude. It's so wild the things you run into. Adam, could you tell us about your most intense or terrifying call on the job?
So
these ain't Hollywood stories.
My main victim, he had stabbed him 50-something times, cut his ears off.
Real cops, real shootouts, real monsters.
If you deal with evil all the time, evil's gonna leak into you.
Our gun muzzles were almost touching, and we both fired at exactly the same time.
No Hollywood bullshit. Just the stories they can't forget, and the price they paid.
If I don't get you today, I'm gonna get you tomorrow.
If they're using their hands, you use your stick. If they're using a stick, you use your gun. We were taught to crush.
Come up, pow, pow, hit 'em.
The shootouts that almost ended them, the monsters they hunted, and the scars they still carry. Cops, Rangers, DEA agents.
I was not afraid to die. I was praying to die. I was afraid to live like that.
Telling it raw with no filter. These are the reasons we serve. Subscribe to hear their stories.
I've been involved in 2 shootings. I'd say those are probably the most high stress or I guess terrifying. I don't know if I'd use that word, but like adrenaline producing.
Sure.
So the first one I think was by far a lot worse than the second one I was in. Second one I was in here, the first one I was in Oregon. So the first shooting happened in August of 2012. So I've been a cop for like 3 years by that point. So since 2009, I was working swing shift, swing or grave. I can't remember, one of the two. And so we had a lot of overlap on those 2 shifts. And so we had like, I want to say 6 guys working. And so there ended up being a call of a gentleman from California. I shouldn't use that term gentleman, but a male from California. He was a 3-striker. I don't know if you've heard that term.
Yeah.
But in California, so when you get 3 strikes, they hammer you, which, it's California. So, but it still means something when you have 3 felonies, right? So he was a 3-striker from California. He came up to Salem, Oregon, and stole a car. I think it was a green Acura Integra, if I remember correctly, because, those get stolen all the time. And he shacked up with a gal in our county, and, things went bad. She decided to call him in when he got a little bit rough with her, and I think he pointed maybe a gun in her face, if I remember correctly. And so he takes off. So it becomes a scramble. So all of us saturate the area, and we're looking for this guy. And so I think there was 6 deputies at least on that night. It was a pretty heavy shift. So, so we're looking for this guy, and 2 of our guys find the vehicle, and they end up getting in a vehicle pursuit with him. It was fairly short, maybe less than 5 or so miles. He doesn't know the area very well, and so he kind of slides out in this. It's like a Y-shaped intersection. So in the center of the intersection is a bunch of brush, like heavy brush, and then behind that is like kind of an open field, right? And so the 2 roads kind of parallel each side of the field when it splits. So he slides out, running from our guys into this gravel area, and he runs into the brush. So he doesn't crash. The car's not crashed, but he just slides out. I don't know if he gets stuck or high centered, but he just doesn't want to go any further in the vehicle. He takes off on foot and goes into this brushy area. So we all set up a perimeter, and I remember surrounding this brushy area. And so we just, we all have our patrol rifles out. And we're kind of just shooting the shit and killing time. And we're waiting for a dog team to show up. So our canine handler, I think both of them were unavailable, or one of them that was there was unavailable, or he was off. And so we had to wait for one from Salem, which is about a 30-45 minute response, right? So dog team shows up. About 5 or 6 guys go in with the dog into this brushy area. And, by this point, between him sliding out, about 45 minutes to an hour had elapsed. So we hear, I'm standing next to a city guy, and we hear commands from the dog team, show me your hands, essentially just your common challenges, right? So show me your hands, come out, put your hands up, that kind of thing. So he pops up in this brushy area, and then he starts walking out. And so there is kind of a U-shaped group of cops like this in this gravel area, kind of around his car. So we're all kind of arranged in this U-shape. We have a wider perimeter on the other side of the field. And so he walks into the middle of this U-shaped group of cops. And I immediately think, oh, this is going to be a bad crossfire. Like, this is not good, So I had my rifle on him the entire time when he popped up, and then he started walking into this U-shaped group of people. And I was like, if he presents a firearm, I'm going to shoot him,
You're thinking like maybe suicide by cop or something, or
possibly nothing, very little to lose, he's going to commit suicide by cop. So what he was doing, I'm not going to stand up, but what he did was he took his white t-shirt, and he had his white t-shirt over his hand. And so he had something in his hand, but he was covering it underneath his white t-shirt. So that could have been a cell phone, could have been a gun, could have been a finger gun, who knows? So it turned out to be an actual firearm, but we couldn't see it. So he was walking into this U-shaped group of people. I have my rifle trained on him. I have a guy to my left, multiple other guys to my left in this U-shaped formation. And then there was at least 1 or 2 guys to my right, including one of my sergeants. So I have my rifle trained on him. He starts walking into us. I'm like, I don't like this because the backdrop sucks. And so I start to lower my rifle, and then all of a sudden my sergeant steps up. He tries to tase the guy. The taser fails because he's wearing a baggy t-shirt. As you know, the taser probes aren't going to work, right? So taser fails. He immediately starts shooting at my sergeant. My sergeant's blocking my shot. So my sergeant's blocking my shot. I no longer have a shot. He returns fire as he's getting shot. My sergeant does, and hits bad guy as bad guy hits him. So there was another guy in the back of that U-shaped formation on the other side that ends up getting hit in the leg with a round. To this day, I still don't know who fired that round. Not me. But he got hit by a round in the leg. My sergeant gets hit. The bad guy gets hit several times. My sergeant gets hit at least a couple times. So he goes down, bad guy goes down. I remember walking up to the suspect. I have my rifle trained in him still. He's not moving. One of his fingers had been shot off and was laying close to his body, and the gun was laying kind of close to it. So one of the rounds from my sergeant's rifle hit the guy's hand basically and shot his finger off. So I remember him not moving, and I had him covered with my rifle for what seemed like several seconds, and then the Salem PD canine that was there. It was one of the most impressive things I'd seen at the time. The dog bit onto his shoulder and drug the bad guy away from his firearm. So that dog was
Wow.
strong enough to grab a grown man, probably 5'10", 5'8", 5'10", 200 plus pounds, stocky dude, drug him probably at least 3 or 4 feet away from his firearm. And so
Wow.
once the guy was in a position of safety away from his gun, they started working on him. I run over to my sergeant, check on him. He was down on the ground, and we start working on him. And thankfully, he survived. And bad guy actually also survived. So
Wow. How many 223 rounds did he take?
I want to say it was like 7 or 8. It was a lot, but it was
Wow.
such a close range. It was such a close range engagement from what I know, I'm a firearms instructor. From what I know of the rounds we were using and how close we are, I think a lot of them didn't have a chance to like properly tumble and create those wound channels. I think because it was so close range, I
Just
think a
blew
lot of
right
them
through him.
just zipped right through them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he was also on meth. So I think that, you know, the narcotics use, the stimulant use probably helped numb the pain or kind of insulate him from that shock that you or I would feel.
Damn, man, that's intense. Thank goodness your sergeant was okay. Where did he get hit?
So when we wore at that time, that agency, we wore black uniforms. So you can imagine trying to do a blood sweep on someone at nighttime with a
Yeah.
black uniform, not easy. We also had black rubber gloves because they looked cool. And so
Yeah. I like
that
those
that
too.
prompt that promptly changed. So trying to do a blood sweep with black rubber gloves and
Yeah.
black uniforms, not an easy time. So he got hit under his vest. He was wearing soft armor, and he got hit under his vest in his abdomen, and then checked his leg, and he'd also received a through and through to his leg. So um, the shot that hit him in the abdomen was the more concerning of the two, obviously.
Yeah.
The biggest crazy thing back then. So think this was 2012, right? So tourniquets in Iraq and Afghanistan were just getting on the scene. Like they were not popular in law enforcement yet. Not a lot of guys in law enforcement were carrying
Right.
tourniquets, right? Not a lot of guys had TCCC. I don't even know if that existed back then. Stop the bleed classes really didn't exist very much, and so I had some personally purchased QuickClot in my patrol car, which I ran and grabbed,
Nice.
and it was like made for like mountain biking injuries, I think, or like hiking injuries. And so thankfully one of the Salem guys that was there was a SWAT medic and he had some higher level medical training. And he was like, okay, now do this, now do that. And so he was telling me what to do. And so I was like, all right, I'd never treated a gunshot wound before.
Yeah.
I've treated injuries, but never a gunshot wound. And so, but thankfully I had my own. And so the biggest takeaway from that for me was, telling my agency, hey, we need tourniquets. Hey, we need QuickClot. We need combat gauze. We need hemostatic bandages. You know what I mean? Like we
Yeah.
need training. We need training to use these things. And because they asked me like, oh, what do you need, Adam? How you doing? And I was like, well, let me tell you what I need. And so,
Yeah.
that
Good
was the biggest
opportunity.
one. Yeah, that was one of the biggest takeaways. But yeah, being back in 2012, it just wasn't common back then.
No, not at all. I mean, around here, the tourniquet thing was probably the last 5 years, maybe 5 years ago that I started seeing them pop up.
Really?
Yep.
It took after 2020 for that to catch on. Really?
Yeah, I probably didn't. Well, maybe it's just me. I didn't carry one until 5 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And they weren't like part of standard issue at all. People had
Okay.
them, but they weren't like, they were
You had
buying
to buy
them.
your own.
Yep. Exactly.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because it almost I'm sure you've seen it too. Like it almost takes like a bad event to happen for that change to happen. It's like, why can't we have this change naturally? Why does it take something terrible happening for it to happen,
Yeah. It's like shooting. Like some agencies shoot 4 times a year, some shoot 2, some shoot once. It seems to really depend on the from the top down. Who's kind of ordering the ammo, who's paying the bills for it. It seems like.
Or how do these events affect them if they affect them at all? If they don't get affected, then they're like, well, okay, we don't need to spend that money on training or first aid supplies because
Right.
we've never had a shooting. We haven't had a shooting. I think my old agency hadn't had a officer involved shooting since the 1950s. I mean, there've been officer involved shootings. I'll correct myself, but there hadn't been one where an officer had been injured since the
Right.
1950s. So there have been officer involved shootings where bad guys were shot by deputies, but no officer had been injured since the 1950s, and so they didn't see the need to carry the tourniquets or the first aid equipment.
Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. It's always an event that sparks the purchasing of the new equipment. It always is. Seems like. I mean, in mass, it's crazy. Like, because I'm a fire instructor too, and they give us law updates, and you have to go through the class and all that. And like a lot of agencies don't ever shoot at night. They don't do night shooting. Even though,
it's wild to me.
Even though there has been cities in Mass who, I forget the details of it. I think it might have been Brockton, but they got in a shootout and they shot a civilian, got hit by a cop's bullet, and it was at night. And all the defense attorney had to say for like the civil trial was like, how much of your police department works at night? 2/3. How much night shooting do you do? Never. 0. And he goes, and the city tried to take the defense of they didn't have the money for it. Yeah. And the courts said, I think probably hearkening back to a Supreme Court ruling, that your lack of funds is not a defense for properly training your employees. So kindly pay that lady who took the round to the leg $5 million and also increase your budget.
Now change your training curriculum. Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, and I bet half those officers didn't have weapon lights on their guns,
No.
Or didn't have operable flashlights.
Right. I remember when, I think it was like 2010, we got weapon lights, and I had to give a special class because it was like someone up north, I forget, I don't want to pick the wrong state, but it was either Vermont or New Hampshire. A trooper was helping somebody with a tire, and they were using their gun light because their other light was dead, and someone drove by and saw like the trooper just like seemingly pointing a gun at somebody changing a tire going, and they called and were like, there's a trooper making someone change their tire at gunpoint. And so I had to get...
You'll see body cam footage even nowadays of guys searching cars with their weapon light, and it's like, thankfully no one's inside the car, but it's still like, dude, put your gun away. Like that's
right. Yeah, I had to give it like a 5-minute class and document it of, hey, you have another flashlight. So this flashlight attached to your gun isn't for like, waving around and looking for things. There's always one that does it. There's always one cop that like makes you do this weird roll call training where everybody's like rolling their eyes at you. Like, yeah, no kidding. I'm like, well, you say that.
The rule exists because of them. Yeah.
Right. It's too funny. Adam, can you tell us about a positive, or dare I say heartwarming situation from your career?
So I've had a lot of, occurrences where I've had to comfort people, on car crashes, things like that. When I was back on patrol, having just lost a loved one, or, at a death investigation where they just lost their spouse. To be honest, I wish I had more heartwarming memories. But I think some of my most heartwarming memories are probably when I've been able to intervene in people's lives, when they're at their lowest. So like that, going back to that first story I told you, I've found myself in a lot of those kind of situations. I don't know why, but I've had a lot of those kind of calls. There was one where I was shift supervisor and we got dispatched to a very nice, affluent house. A gentleman was going through a rough time. I think his wife was leaving him. He was going through a rough time at work, and he gets called in as being suicidal in his kitchen, and he was trying to take his own life with a kitchen knife. And so I show up, another guy shows up. And so thankfully it was myself, and the other guy that was with me was a negotiator on our SWAT team. And so probably two of the most ideal people to talk to folks or talk them down. Right. And so we get the wife and the kids out of the house to a position of safety. And so we go in there. I bring my 40 millimeter rubber bullet launcher, my foam baton round launcher. And so it was a gorgeous kitchen. It was one of those massive open floor plan houses with a kitchen island. And so we were able to use like this big kitchen island as like a position to cover.
You're like, why do you want to end your life? Look at this kitchen, brother.
it's baller, right? But
Right.
he was performing poorly at work, and he was like, I think, getting terminated, and so everything was just kind of unraveling for this
Yeah,
guy.
yeah.
I felt real bad for him, you know what I mean? And
Of
then his
course.
wife's like, yeah, I'm leaving you, and it's like just to rub
Oh
salt in
my
the wound, right?
gosh. Yeah.
It's like maybe this isn't the time to do that, but I wasn't going to give marital advice at that time, right? So we position ourselves behind this kitchen island, and we're just talking to this guy, and he was on the ground. He was sitting on the ground with his legs kind of outstretched in front of him, and he was taking the kitchen knife and he was putting it over his heart, and he was trying to pound it into his chest like that,
Oof.
and he was trying to pound it past his rib cage to
Yeah.
hit his heart. And so we talked to him for, I want to say, dispatch told me later it was like 4 hours. It didn't seem that long,
Wow.
but it seemed like a long time. So I put all non-priority calls pending, in pending status. I freed up the one deputy we had to go take like hot calls and stuff if there were any came in. And so myself and this other guy talked to this guy for 4 hours and finally talked him down to a position where he kind of relaxed and dropped his hands, off the knife. And we went over and grabbed the knife. And thankfully, the knife wasn't in his chest yet. He'd just been like stabbing the surface of his skin.
Yeah.
And so, if it was in there, we weren't going to take it out. We were just going to
Mm.
leave it and then handcuff him. But we took it, away from his chest, got him in handcuffs, and then POC'd him again, like the other guy. So there's that kind of stuff. There was another one that kind of sticks in my mind too. Back when I was in detectives, I did a couple of controlled buys into this guy who was selling heroin. So he was selling heroin out of his apartment downtown in our city. I bought some heroin. I bought a handgun, like a really crappy revolver. And so, but it was a solid delivery case, right? Distribution case. And then also Oregon has a felon in possession of a firearm law. So you get that C felony there. So it was a good case. So this kind of ties into the one of the reasons I left Oregon. But so I ended up charging the guy with unlawful distribution of heroin, plus the gun crime, and he gets sentenced to drug court, and he gets put in one of our transitional housing centers, which was like right next to our sheriff's office, our law enforcement center, police
Oh wow.
station, and the jail. So we had our own apartment building that we had transitional housing in. So he gets sentenced to drug court for selling heroin and a gun. Okay.
Nice.
So that's Oregon, right? He goes into transitional housing. I end up doing my 5 years in detectives and rotating back to patrol for a year. And so one of the first calls I get on patrol when I'm back on patrol in uniform is, do a welfare check on this guy that's in our transitional housing. So his mom called in and she's like, I haven't been able to get a hold of my son. I'm like, I know who this guy is. I put a case on him.
Right.
And so I go over there and, go into the apartment building, knock on the door, and no one answers. It's completely quiet, silent. And I was like, all right, well, I need a key to get in. The door's locked. So I go back over, get a hold of his PO. I was like, hey, I need your master key. I need you to come with me. We need a key into this room to check on this guy. So the PO comes with me. We end up using the key on the door. As soon as the door swings open, a body swings across the doorway and falls.
Whoa.
And I was like, oh shit, that's a
Yeah.
body. So the door had bumped him. He had actually hung himself by it was like one of those fabric covered like iPhone cables. He
Oh,
made
yeah.
made a rope out of it or a noose out of it, hung himself from a steam pipe right behind the front door. And so the door knocked him loose and he fell onto the ground. And so, the PO lets out a little yell and he's like, ah. And so I go in there and knowing my history with this gentleman, I knew he was an opiate user, heroin user. And I'm like, well, he probably got high before he hung himself. So I'm going to Narcan him. So I give him one
Good
dose
idea.
of Narcan and he starts stirring. And then I give him another dose and he wakes up and he's pissed. You Narcan
Yeah.
someone, I'm sure you have. They wake
Yeah.
up really unhappy. So, he started screaming, like, get off me. What are you doing? Like, I want to die, and so he was clearly suicidal. And so the PO is like, what do I do? What do I do? And I was like, go downstairs and tell fire where to go. And because I got on the radio and called for EMS. And I was like, go downstairs, call for fire, tell them where to go and how to get in the building and let him in the front door. And so he's like, okay. So, but yeah, I just, seeing this guy who I was buying drugs from like 6 months prior, buying a gun from, and then saving his life. And it's like, I don't know, mixed emotions, I guess. But, had he been in prison like Oregon, where Oregon should have sent him, then, he may have not have been there at that moment.
Damn, that's crazy, man. Good thinking, though, to Narcan him rather than thinking he's just a goner. So he must have had some color left in him still.
Yeah, yeah. When in doubt, Narcan out, right? So
right. Yeah, I
cheap,
remember.
It's plentiful.
The first agency I worked at, I remember they it wasn't my shift, but they Narcaned a lady in a convenience store parking lot, and they thought Narcan was pretty new for us to carry, and they thought she was dead. And they put her in the ambulance. They're Narcanning her, nothing goes away, and they just figured she died. And like 3-4 days later, she's in our lobby bawling out the dispatcher for stealing her we took her property for her, accusing us of stealing her property.
You're like, no, thank you for saving my life.
Yeah, just screaming that we were pieces of shit. And it was like, wow, good save, guys. I mean, it's a good save. You saved a life, but it's like, man, talk about ungrateful.
Are you guys seeing a lot of like fentanyl overdoses still? Like it's slacked off here in Montana. It's I mean, there's still some fatal overdoses and such, but the fentanyl use and seizures have gone way down. Are you guys still seeing a lot of it?
No, I mean, when I started as a cop on the Cape, and I actually remember watching on shift during dinner with another cop, watching part of the documentary that they did about Cape Cod and opiate use and overdose, and having an overdose come in while watching the documentary on Cape Cod. And we got there, and his roommate had already Narcaned him, and he was already awake again, and being like, "What? This is like, when is this going to end?"
He's like ready for round 2. He's like, let's go.
Dude, it was crazy. Yeah. I mean, but yeah, no, it's been from what I can recall from recent history. Yeah, it's definitely been slower.
Yeah, it's been interesting during my career. I've been in law enforcement over 17 years now, and it's been interesting seeing the drug trends. Like meth has been such a constant, just always there. And then, early in my career, it was like actual oxy pills, and then they switched to heroin, and then they switched to fentanyl pills, and now it's fentanyl powder. And so it's like this weird, just, opiate, train or progression, evolution.
Yeah.
So it's rare to talk to an opiate user that started with real oxy and has ended up now on fentanyl powder and is not dead.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I can remember in college having friends that were like, and I was never like obviously I became a cop. I was never like a hardcore drug user or anything, but I remember having guys that like lived near me in the college apartments that would like got a dishwasher from work or whoever they would get oxys from, and they would like grind up the edge of it with a quarter and sniff it. And I remember being like, guys, this is crazy. You're like 6 months from getting a college degree and you're like snorting prescription medicine. And this was like, these were like, by all other accounts, like good kids. Yeah. They were getting into doing like starting with other people's prescription meds and snorting them. I thought it was so bizarre to watch. I was always just pretty much a beer guy, like a beer was beer was enough for me.
I had a really bad throat infection my freshman year of college, and it was like strep or I don't know, something like that. I thought it was mono. They didn't think it was mono, but it was just a really terrible throat infection, and it just hurt for like a month. And the clinic gave me like a giant bottle of Vicodin, and I was like, you realize how terrible of an idea this is to give college, just hand out Vicodin like it's candy. Some girl was like, "Can I buy your Vicodin?"
Oh, dude.
Like, no, I'm not gonna sell you my Vicodin.
I remember I had a back problem. They gave me oxycodone, and people were like, "Did you use all your prescription?" I'm like, I didn't like taking it because I never, whatever my chemical makeup is, whenever I took oxycodone for pain, it took the pain away, but it made me feel sick. Like it made me feel, I would have these dreams that I was falling, and I'd wake up like sweating. It just wasn't for me. So people knew I would have like a 3/4 full bottle that I never used.
Yeah.
And but my buddy, he was getting OxyContin, which was like the heavy one. not the oxycodone, the OxyContin, like the one that people were ODing on. He was grinding that up, and I was like, dude, brother, what are we doing?
Yeah, I'm the same way as you. Like whenever I've had Oxy or Vicodin, it's just made my stomach really kind of upset, and it just doesn't do anything for the pain. And I'm like, I'm not taking this.
I'm grateful, dude. I'm so grateful I don't take a pill and go, oh, this is so amazing.
I can't be imagine what it's like to be that dependent on something, but
no. And that's how it always starts like that. It always starts with like prescriptions or whatever, or like just recreational. And then you end at the lowest common denominator. You end with heroin because you can get heroin. You can't get somebody's Oxy. It's hard to get someone's prescription medicine or to get prescription meds. So you end up just, you start off saying, I would never be a person. I don't even like needles. I would never use a needle, to injecting yourself with actual heroin and ODing. That's like the story I've heard so many times.
Yeah, there was so much tar heroin, like most of my career in Oregon before I left. It was just so prevalent. We were buying it almost weekly. I was taking it off people almost weekly. And then here I've only got it a few times, since I've been here in 2022. I've only seen it a few times, mostly been fentanyl. I've gotten tons of fentanyl pills from like 22 to like 24. And then from 24 onward, the pills have been decreasing and the powder's been more common.
Interesting. Do you have the law there if you go to an overdose, like if it's a personal amount of drugs, nobody can be charged, including the person who OD'd, just so that people aren't afraid to report?
Not here, but in Oregon, that was a thing. So there was like the Good Samaritan type laws that were coming around. So it's like, it even got to the point where they're like, we don't want you arresting people on their warrants. So if they had outstanding warrants and they called during an overdose or they were present during an overdose, they're like, we don't want you arresting them on their outstanding warrant. So we would like break contact and then re-engage and arrest them on their warrant. But it was getting so ridiculous. They're like, yeah, you can't charge anyone for anything in an overdose scene. And it's like, okay. So yeah, it just became really hard to identify, charge, and prosecute those overdose death cases.
Yeah, I had a guy that did OD'd. I think he just straight up OD'd on the drugs I collected were PCP. And when I look back at it, I'm thankful that he like took too much, because he was like on his back, like doing like a velociraptor thing, and kind of like he was just like, I didn't know what was wrong with the guy.
Yeah, the bruxism going on, the grinding of the teeth.
Yes, and it just butts too much, so he couldn't wake up and throw me like through the roof. You know, he just was like gone. And I collected up all this stuff, and it was one of these stories where the guy was like, I don't really know him. I just hired him to paint the room in my house. Meanwhile, the guy's got cameras all over his house, like coming in and out of the driveway, like cameras in the house.
How to spot a trap house 101.
Yeah, just
look for all the cameras.
Just terrible. And so then backup showed up, and he had a warrant, of course, as he's like, like 4 pointed to a stretcher. Like dispatch is like, yeah, he's positive 14, they call it. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, see you later. Because what are you going to do with him? I'm not going to go sit with him.
No, until he's medically cleared. It's like, could be hours. Yeah.
Right. So I did the right thing and notified the community that was going to have him in their hospital that he had a warrant. I said, if you guys want to go.
We'd say call us when he's released, and sometimes they would, sometimes they wouldn't, but
right. Yeah. So yeah, man, it's wild. Adam, popular question on the show. A lot of people listening and watching, they want to be police officers. They want to do what we do, and they hear your guys' stories, and it actually inspires them to do the job, which I think is cool. I like emails like that, pictures at academy graduations of people who I listened to all the stories from the people on your podcast and decided to actually do it. After all the years you've had in policing, what is some advice you would give to people looking into it, or people who are in backgrounds, or people who are just starting academy, getting into the profession?
I would say, there's the obvious ones. If you're still trying to get hired, like try to keep your record squeaky clean, don't use drugs, be as honest as you can. A lot of that's just how you live your life as a young person, Some people just are a good fit for this career, and some people just aren't. But as far as once you become a cop, I myself had a lot of self-doubt when I was in the academy. Not because I thought I couldn't do it, but because, back then the academy in Oregon was so militaristic. I was like, what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
And it's like, had I wanted to do this, I would have joined joined the army or joined the Navy or the Marines or something like that. But it's like, I just had serious concerns about like how militaristic it was going to be. But then, once you find what you're good at, you're going to get hooked and you're going to just, you're going to enjoy it. Once you find your niche or your speciality within the profession. My advice for people who have already gotten to this job and are just starting out, so like, year one, I'd say the first piece of advice would be take a lot of photographs. I did not take as many photographs as I wish I would have, like early in my career. I have some, but try to memorialize and take pictures, not for social media, not for clout, not for, to be a TikTok cop or to be Instagram famous, but do it for yourself and do it for when you're later in your career. You can look back on those things you did, the people you worked with, the events you guys went through, the hardships, the triumphs, because you're going to get older, and after a while, your brain's going to get full of names, birthdays, trauma, your own memories and stuff like that. And those memories that you made with your coworkers are going to blur and they're going to fade. You're going to lose coworkers to resignations, firings, suicide, death.
Yep.
I've lost several coworkers to, both natural death and suicides. And I can say this: you're gonna look back one day, when you're pushing 20 years, and you're gonna be like, I wish I had more pictures, for yourself, and then their families, your coworkers' families that you may be close with or maybe not even close with. They're gonna wish you took more pictures of their spouse while they were at work or that kind of thing.
Great advice. I've never heard that on here before. That is good advice, though.
That's just, I don't know, that's my own feelings. I try to take a lot of pictures now of my friends at work and stuff we get into, but I wish I had more from like year 1 to year 5. I didn't have a lot of photographs, but back then we didn't have smartphones. We had flip phones and stuff.
Right.
So, but now it's a lot easier. So the second piece of advice I have, I think, is don't get into this job for the wrong reasons, and don't go sit in parking lots and play on your phone. Don't go browse Instagram for 8 to 10 hours a shift. Don't, browse Facebook. Don't be a TikTok cop or a social media influencer type cop. I think podcasts like this are fantastic because they kind of educate not only other law enforcement, but the public on what we do and kind of bring a human face to the profession. Where I have a problem is those guys who, dance in uniform and
brutal.
No, I just no. So I'd say, focus on finding what your strengths are going to be. Whether that's DUIs, finding drugs and guns, investigating homicides, investigating, child sex abuse material cases, like child predators, that kind of thing. You're going to gravitate towards one or two things in this profession that you're good at. It's natural. One of my best FTOs was like, try to be a well-rounded, deputy or law enforcement officer. And I think that's what we all strive for. You need to be good at firearms. You need to be good at driving. You need to be good at, doing the basics of your job, like a DUI if you have to, but you're going to naturally gravitate towards one or two things that you're really good at. So there's nothing wrong with being really, really good at one of those things and helping or educating people, to do those. So, I would say also, like, be concerned about how many people's lives you impact and how many bad folks, guns, drugs, etc., that you get off the streets, and less concerned about how many traffic tickets you write. I've worked with a few people in my career who are very proud of, or were very proud of, I wrote 250 tickets this year, and it's like, okay, how many felonies, did you arrest, right? How many felony cases did you make? How many guns did you get off the street? How many bad wanted people did you get off the street? How much dope did you get? So I'm not saying speed enforcement or traffic enforcement is not important, but it's necessary. But don't put your entire, don't invest your entire self in something that doesn't maybe make a difference so much as something that does. My final piece of advice is this. I'm not going to go into specifics or name names, but I've worked with some really great, fantastic people in this career, and I think you need to focus on trying to identify who those people are, and surround yourself with them. You're also going to work with some very lackluster folks, some folks that didn't deserve to be in the positions that they're in. Don't let them get you down. Don't let them make you have a negative, outlook on the career. Don't let them have a negative impact on your own mental health, or career well-being. You're going to witness bravery, and you're going to witness cowardice, and you're going to witness everything in between. And so just try your best. Just try to be that. Try to be as brave as you can. Be intelligent. And then just recognize who to surround yourself with and who to learn from. I would say also don't agency hop, but don't hesitate to move on to a better agency or to a more favorable political climate, kind of
Right.
like I did. Everyone's like, well, you need to know when to get out of the job and when the job, is no longer for you. And it's like, maybe it's not the job, but maybe it's where you're doing it at.
Yeah.
So
good point.
whether it's your agency, if your agency has, maybe a less than ideal or a toxic, environment, or the state you're working in has an unfavorable political environment, you just need to, recognize that and maybe move to a different place,
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
I would also say, maintain a good work-life balance, put in 100% effort at work, but know when it's time to turn it off and how to turn it off and how to go home. Have friends outside law enforcement that aren't cops. It's fun to talk and share war stories with your cop buddies, but also have
Sure.
guys that you can go hang out with and do something, whether it's fishing or golf or hiking, backpacking, friends outside law enforcement. And then also have, like I was kind of saying, have healthy hobbies or outlets outside law enforcement. Don't drink too much. Be a faithful partner to your husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend in your relationships, and don't spend outside your means. I think by nature, cops, we in law enforcement are adrenaline seekers. And so where I see a lot of guys have gotten in trouble over the years that I've worked with, guys and gals, is they go and they try to seek or substitute that adrenaline they find at work with something that is maybe not healthy, whether it's, chasing romantic entanglements, drinking too much, gambling,
Sure.
buying a nice truck or a nice car, or a nice
That $800 car payment.
Yeah. So try to find healthy outlets and healthy hobbies that don't drain your bank account. So
Yeah, words of wisdom, Adam. Thank you for that. Something you said earlier kind of struck with me was you definitely will feel like you're faking it to make it at first, because it is kind of a surreal moment when you get in the car and you're in uniform and you're the cop.
100%.
And that's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay to feel like that, because I think everybody, to some extent, I guess there are some guys that hop in and go, I'm the police, let's do this. But usually you feel kind of weird, and that's okay. It'll grow on you.
I kind of equated that feeling for me with, like, okay, when you're around like a dog, like a strange dog that you've never met, right? Do you project an air of confidence, or competence, I should say? And if you do, that dog's going to pick up on that and maybe not attack you, or, not be sketched out by you, et cetera. And so that's the same thing when you're talking to these hardened career criminals at the age of 22 years old, and you stop a car of 4 dudes at like 10 o'clock at night
without a line in your face.
Yeah. And so it's like, you gotta bluff, you know what I mean? So it's like, I'm sure that's why a lot of cops are good card players. It's like, you gotta bluff a little bit, and don't hesitate to call your more experienced coworkers and guys that you can fall back and rely on. You're like, dude, what do I do? I got this. What do I got going on? It's better to, I think what I found, it's better to phone a friend, than it is to make the wrong choice or make the wrong decision.
I still do it. I still will call somebody and be like, because in police work, you're going to get stuff that's like weird. Yeah. That's what's interesting about police work. You will get stuff even 20 years in where you go, can I charge him with that? And you just call up here.
That's one of the best parts of the job, though, because it's like, no 2 days are exactly the same, right?
Right.
You're not going, it's not a 9 to 5. You're not punching in and punching out. and it's, every single day is the same. It's every day is different. And that's what the best part about this job is.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're going to run into things that you've been a cop for 17 plus years, and you're not going to, like, I've never dealt with this before. So I need to call an expert. Yeah.
It kind of sucks, but you're like, damn it. Thought I knew it all, but I don't.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Adam, thank you for coming on, brother. Honored to have you on the show. Really appreciate it. Can you hang on for just, well, let me ask you first. I'm guessing, since we're going to blur your face and everything, do you have anything, any social media or email, or if someone wants to ask you a question, you want them to write an email to me and I can kind of Sherpa it to you?
Yeah, I can give you you already have my personal email. So I'll give you you already have my personal email and my phone number.
Put that in the
So
show notes. That's okay.
Yeah. If they have any questions about anything, they can, they can contact me by that email. I'd be happy to answer any questions. So. Okay.
Perfect. Well, thank you, sir. I'm going to do the outro, and can you hang on for just like 2 minutes?
Yeah.
All right. The great Adam Miller. Thank you so much to him for coming on. Great stories, really fun conversation. This is a time in the show where I thank the Patreon sponsors. I'm going to just read the names and not use so much bravado because my voice is a little bit sore. I think I might be getting a cold. So I'm going to start with the lieutenants. Who I'm talking about is Andy Biggs, Kyle Roberts, Brad Thompson, Michael Roach, Lane Campbell. Now I'm on to the sergeants. Gary Steiner, Adam Mihal, Seth Wright, Lauren Stimson, Jason Lau, Sasha McNabb, Tammy Walsh, George Tessier, Dennis Carrasquillo, Scott Young, everybody. Dan Carlson from Burley Boards. Check him out on Instagram. Great woodworker. Doug and Kelly Newman. Love you guys. Hope you're enjoying Wyoming. Raymond Arsenault, everybody. Richard Tolles. Keep on trucking, my man. Be safe out there. Elliot Sykes. Clark LaCoff. Adam McMahon. Sheriff Ronald Long. Thank you, sir. Zachary Pleat. Jason Labrie. Lisa Gano, Sherry Finch, Eric Smith, Jackson Dalton, Black Box Safety, check them out. Brett Lee, Alex Wasik, Lauren Smith, Yvonne Truelove. Thank you guys so much. I want to go back and say Brad Thompson, Lieutenant Level, Big Bear Investigations. Check him out on Instagram. Okay. Thank you guys so much. The list is getting long, and I truly appreciate that. And guess what? I love you, and I'll see you next time.